Have you noticed how morning muscle stiffness seems worse on some days with no apparent reason? Or how tremors sometimes intensify after certain meals? Perhaps you've observed that after that Sunday family lunch, your Parkinson's symptoms became harder to control, but you never connected these dots. I imagine you've wondered if there might be a relationship between what you eat and how your body responds to treatments, or how symptoms manifest. This is the silent reality many people with Parkinson's face daily, not realizing that the answer to part of their suffering might literally be on the plate in front of them. For many, Parkinson's is like a maze where every decision seems to have unpredictable consequences. From the difficulty in cutting food, to the frustration of discovering that medication isn't working as well as it should. Have you felt this way? Helpless amid so many contradictory pieces of information about what you should or shouldn't eat? As a neurologist at Johns Hopkins, I've followed hundreds of Parkinson's patients over the past 17 years, and I can confidently state that certain foods are directly linked to disease progression, while others can be your greatest allies in controlling symptoms. I'm not talking about miraculous promises or magical cures, but evidence-based choices grounded in solid scientific studies that can make a real difference in your quality of life and the pace of disease progression. Today I'll share 3 categories of foods that you possibly consume every day without knowing they may be silently accelerating Parkinson's progression, and more importantly, I'll show you delicious and accessible alternatives that can become your allies on this journey. Imagine being able to sit at the table without anxiety, knowing exactly how each food will interact with your condition and medications. Think about how it would feel to transform your meals into moments of healing rather than worry. These possibilities are within your reach, and in the next few minutes, I'll show you exactly how to do this in a practical and realistic way. Before we begin, I'd like to know where you're watching from today. Leave a comment below and feel free to ask any questions you have about diet and Parkinson's. Before we continue, I want to extend a special invitation. If you or someone you love is facing the daily challenges of Parkinson's and seeking reliable, science-based information explained simply, this Beyond Parkinson channel was created especially for you. Here we regularly share practical strategies, exercises, and tips that have helped hundreds of people regain small and significant independence in daily life. Click the subscribe button now. It's completely free, and you won't miss any technique that could make a difference in your quality of life or that of your family member. Now let's continue with our first category of foods that promises to bring important revelations about how what you eat directly affects Parkinson's symptoms. First, let's talk about ultra-processed foods. Among the many factors affecting Parkinson's progression, ultra-processed foods stand out as true accelerators of neurodegeneration. But how exactly do these foods impact people with Parkinson's? Let's explore together. When we talk about ultra-processed foods, we're referring to products that have undergone multiple industrial steps and contain various additives such as preservatives, colorings, stabilizers, and flavorings. Recent studies from Harvard University and Johns Hopkins School of Public Health show a direct correlation between consuming these foods and increased oxidative stress and neuroinflammation, 2 processes directly linked to Parkinson's progression. To better understand, think of your brain as a sophisticated city where each neuron is an important building with various functions. Ultra-processed foods are like toxic pollutants that gradually corrode the essential structures of the city, especially those responsible for dopamine production. Research published in the Journal of Neuroinflammation in 2023 demonstrated that rats regularly exposed to ultra-processed foods showed a 28% faster decline in dopamine-producing cells compared to rats fed natural diets. But what exactly in these foods causes so much damage? First, artificial additives, such as monosodium glutamate and sulfite preservatives, have been associated with neural excitotoxicity, a process where neurons are literally overstimulated to death. Second, highly processed vegetable oils and trans fats promote systemic inflammation that eventually crosses the blood-brain barrier, directly affecting the nervous system. Third, refined sugars present in these products cause glucose spikes that increase oxidative stress, exactly what we don't want for a brain already vulnerable due to Parkinson's. Which specific foods should I avoid? The main culprits include sodas, especially diet ones containing aspartame, an artificial sweetener that studies from the University of Barcelona have associated with accelerated neurodegeneration. Processed snacks that combine the terrible trio of oxidized fats, excess salt, and artificial additives. Processed meats such as hot dogs, bologna, and ham, which, besides preservatives, contain nitrates and nitrites associated with oxidative stress. Packaged cookies and other industrialized sweets, rich in refined sugars and trans fats, ready-made sauces and industrialized broths, usually loaded with monosodium glutamate, a compound that can exacerbate neurological symptoms in sensitive people. But how do these foods interact with Parkinson's medication? This is a crucial question. Clinical studies show that ultra-processed foods can reduce the effectiveness of levodopa, the main medication used in Parkinson's treatment, by up to 30%. This happens because additives and preservatives alter the intestinal environment, impairing medication absorption. Additionally, excess protein in many processed foods directly competes with levodopa in intestinal absorption and transport across the blood-brain barrier. One of the most serious but little discussed consequences is the wearing off phenomenon, where medication stops working before the next dose, a problem frequently reported by patients who consume many ultra-processed foods. Before continuing with the next food group, I want to pause and ask you something important. What time of day do Parkinson's symptoms most affect your life or the life of your family member? Is it upon waking, when rigidity seems to take over the body, or perhaps during meals, when tremors make each forkful a challenge? Or is it at night, when sleep simply won't come? This question isn't just out of curiosity. Many people with Parkinson's feel that no one really understands the invisible challenges they face daily, and you're not alone in this journey. Share your experience in the comments. You can simply copy and complete this phrase. My biggest challenge with Parkinson's is when I try to. Your comment might be exactly the information someone else needs to read today to feel understood and less alone. Plus, your comments help us create content more specific to the real difficulties you face. Now let's continue with our second category of foods that can bring significant relief for many of the challenges you might share. Our second category of problematic foods for those living with Parkinson's may surprise many people. Excess animal proteins, especially red meats and large quantities of dairy products. When we talk about protein and Parkinson's, we enter delicate territory. On one hand, the body needs proteins for essential functions, but on the other, excess and the wrong type of protein can significantly compromise treatment and potentially accelerate disease progression. Let's understand why the relationship between proteins and Parkinson's is complex and deserves our attention. A cohort study with more than 130,000 participants conducted by Harvard University over 12 years discovered that those who consumed red meat daily had a 40% higher risk of developing Parkinson's compared to those who consumed it less than once a week. The mechanisms behind this association are multiple, but researchers identified at least 3 main factors. First, red meats are rich in heme iron, a form of iron easily absorbed that in excess can accumulate in the brain, promoting oxidative stress and damaging dopaminergic neurons already vulnerable due to Parkinson's. Second, processed meats, and often even fresh ones, contain nitrogenous compounds that can convert into substances toxic to the nervous system. Third, animal protein digestion tends to produce inflammatory metabolites that can cross the damaged intestinal barrier, common in Parkinson's patients, and promote neuroinflammation. But there's another crucial problem specific for those already diagnosed with Parkinson's who use levodopa, the main medication for symptom control. Proteins, mainly those of animal origin, directly compete with levodopa for the same transporters, both in the intestine and at the blood-brain barrier. This means that a protein-rich meal, like a large steak, can reduce medication absorption by up to 50%, causing what doctors call a dose failure, when medication simply doesn't work as it should. Many of my patients report that after a Sunday barbecue or a traditional breakfast with cheeses and ham, symptoms return with much more intensity and medication seems ineffective. They're not imagining things, it's pure science. Protein literally blocks levodopa's access to the brain. As for dairy products, the problem goes beyond protein. Studies from Harvard University and the University of California show that regular consumption of whole milk is associated with an increased risk of Parkinson's. One theory is that contaminants such as pesticides and neurotoxins can concentrate in milk fat. Additionally, dairy tends to be pro-inflammatory for many people, potentially exacerbating the neuroinflammation already present in Parkinson's.
Does this mean I need to completely cut out animal proteins? Not necessarily, but it requires strategic. Many neurologists, including myself, recommend an approach called protein redistribution, where most proteins are consumed at dinner. when the majority of daily levodopa doses have already been taken.
An even more effective strategy is to reduce animal proteins, substituting them with plant proteins, which tend to interfere less with medication absorption, besides carrying fewer potentially neurotoxic compounds. A study published in the New England Journal of Medicine showed that patients who adopted a diet based primarily on plant proteins had a 25% reduction in off periods when medication doesn't work properly, compared to those who maintained high animal protein consumption. This translates to more hours of the day with better symptom control, greater independence, and better quality of life. Now let's move to our third category of problematic foods, and this may be the most controversial, as it's present daily in the lives of practically all Americans: refined sugar and high glycemic index carbohydrates. Few people know, but there's a direct relationship between refined sugar consumption and worsening Parkinson's symptoms, as well as potential acceleration of disease progression. Let's analyze why this happens and how to make smarter choices that can literally save your neurons. When we consume high glycemic index foods like white bread, white rice, sweets, and sodas, our body experiences rapid blood glucose spikes, followed by equally dramatic drops. Researchers from the University of London demonstrated that these sugar spikes and drops significantly increase oxidative stress in the brain, precisely the type of damage that accelerates neuronal death in Parkinson's. Studies conducted by the Mayo Clinic revealed that Parkinson's patients with insulin resistance or type 2 diabetes progress to more advanced disease stages approximately 40% faster than patients with normal glucose levels. This data is alarming considering that excessive sugar consumption is precisely what leads to insulin resistance in the first place. But there's yet another concerning mechanism. Sugary and refined foods dramatically alter our gut microbiome, favoring pathogenic bacteria at the expense of beneficial ones. Recent research from the Karolinska Institute in Sweden and the University of California in San Francisco has established convincing links between an unbalanced gut microbiome and Parkinson's progression. In fact, today we know that the neurodegenerative process of Parkinson's begins in the gut decades before the first motor symptoms appear. Professor Michael Schlossmacher from the University of Ottawa explains that an intestinal barrier compromised by the effects of sugar and refined carbohydrates allows toxins to cross into the bloodstream and eventually reach the brain. His research demonstrates how the alpha-synuclein protein, which forms Lewy bodies, a pathological characteristic of Parkinson's, first accumulates in the enteric nervous system of the intestine and then propagates to the brain through the vagus nerve, like a prion. Additionally, there's convincing evidence that refined sugar increases systemic inflammation, a process that knowingly exacerbates Parkinson's symptoms and accelerates neurodegeneration. What are the main problematic foods in this category? The list unfortunately includes many American favorites: regular white bread, bakery cake, cookies, even those without filling, white rice, regular pasta, non-whole grain, store-bought juices, even those claiming to be natural, sodas, even zero-sugar ones, sweets in general, desserts like puddings and custards, sugary drinks such as coffee with sugar, sweetened teas and chocolate drinks. What alternatives can I adopt? Fortunately, there are delicious and satisfying substitutions that can make all the difference. First, replace refined grains with whole versions. Real whole grain bread with visible grains, brown rice or wild rice, whole grain pasta or legume-based pasta, such as chickpea pasta. Second, natural low glycemic index sweeteners in small quantities, such as pure stevia without additives, organic honey in modest amounts, natural xylitol. Third, whole fruits instead of juices, even homemade ones, as whole fruit contains fiber that slows sugar absorption. Fourth, chocolates with at least 70% cocoa, which offer sweet flavor with antioxidant benefits and low sugar. Fifth, complex carbohydrates such as sweet potatoes, quinoa, oats, and legumes like beans, lentils, and chickpeas, which release glucose slowly into the blood. Several of my patients report significant improvement in tremors and medication effectiveness after drastically reducing sugar and refined carbohydrates. Mr. Anthony, 67, for example, managed to reduce his levodopa dose by 25% after 6 months following these dietary recommendations. Mrs. Mary, 72, reports that her off periods practically disappeared on weekends when she maintains her diet according to these guidelines, although she still notices a difference when dining out with more sugars and refined foods. For people with Parkinson's seeking to improve their quality of life and potentially slow disease progression, making these 3 dietary changes, avoiding ultra-processed foods, reducing animal proteins, especially in meals with medication, and eliminating refined sugars and carbohydrates, offers a scientifically grounded approach that can bring significant results. I want to emphasize that these changes don't replace your prescribed medications, but work in conjunction with them, optimizing their effectiveness and potentially reducing side effects. By adopting these changes gradually, you may experience some notable benefits: better response to medication, with longer and more predictable on periods, reduction in tremor intensity, especially during stressful periods, fewer motor fluctuations throughout the day, better sleep quality, which in turn improves all other symptoms, reduction in morning rigidity, which many describe as one of the most difficult parts of the day, more energy and mental clarity, with fewer episodes of extreme fatigue, improved intestinal function, with less constipation, a common problem in Parkinson's, reduction of pain and discomfort associated with muscle rigidity. But remember, dietary changes work best when implemented as part of a holistic approach that includes regular physical exercise, especially activities like Tai Chi, yoga, and resistance training, stress management through techniques such as mindfulness and deep breathing, good sleep hygiene, creating consistent routines and environments conducive to rest, strategic supplementation under medical guidance, with compounds such as coenzyme Q10, omega-3 fatty acids, and vitamin D, regular socialization, as isolation is linked to faster Parkinson's progression. You've probably noticed how difficult it is to find specific information about dealing with Parkinson's day to day, especially content that truly understands the American reality. That's why our Beyond Parkinson channel exists, to be that place where you find clear answers without complicated medical terminology and without false promises. By subscribing to the channel, you join thousands of people who, like you, seek to live better despite Parkinson's. Beyond weekly videos with practical tips, our community in the comments shares experiences and offers support. We've been receiving touching messages from subscribers who managed to return to activities they had abandoned using our techniques, from walking in the park to playing with grandchildren. We're not promising miracles, but rather small daily victories that, added together, transform quality of life. If this makes sense to you, click the subscribe button now. It's free and could be the first step to discovering new possibilities for your well-being. Remember, knowledge is a powerful tool, and we want to share it with you every week. In our next video, we'll explore superfoods that can act as neuroprotectors for those with Parkinson's and reveal practical and accessible recipes that combine all the principles we discussed today. Until then, try eliminating at least one of the problematic foods we mentioned. Start slowly, with small, sustainable changes, and observe how your body responds. Remember, each meal is an opportunity to care for your brain, and each conscious food choice is a step toward a better life with Parkinson's. Thank you for taking the time to learn with us today. We hope to see you in our next video. Take care, and see you soon.